What's the key to shaping responsible citizens of tomorrow? In this session, Daniel Stid of the American Enterprise Institute moderates a discussion with Catherine Bradley of the Purpose of Education Fund at the Stewart Foundation, Dame Louise Richardson of the Carnegie Corporation of New York, and Hannah Scandera of the Daniels Fund on how philanthropy can catalyze civic education. They emphasize the need for early engagement, community-driven efforts, and giving young people real opportunities to practice leadership.
Just before we came out of the pitfalls of the post-lunch slot, so if we see anyone not paying rapt attention, we'll call you out. My name is Daniel Stid. I'm a non-resident fellow with the American Enterprise Institute. Let me just give a quick vignette for our panelists here. To my immediate left, Catherine Bradley directs the Purpose of Education Fund at the Stewart Foundation. Previously, Catherine worked at the Hewitt Foundation, where we were colleagues, the Learning Policy Institute, and most importantly, started her career as a fourth grade teacher in her hometown of New Haven, Connecticut. So welcome, Catherine. To Catherine's left is Dame Louise Richardson, who is the president of the Carnegie Corporation in New York. Previously, Louise was the vice chancellor, in effect, the president of the universities of St. Andrews and then Oxford in the United Kingdom. She was also an accomplished scholar of terrorism, counterterrorism, and international relations. So welcome, Louise. And to Louise's left is Hannah Scandera, who is the president and CEO of the Daniels Foundation. And previously, Hannah was Commissioner of Education in New Mexico, Deputy Commissioner of Education in Florida, and occupied senior roles in the Department of Education under President George W. Bush. So anyway, welcome, Hannah. Good to have you with us. So we've heard this morning several different compelling stories, vignettes from a range of people, not least that great set of young people we heard just before the break about the potential for civic learning. And the topic here is whether and how and to what extent philanthropy can serve as a catalyst for so many of the experiments that are germinating in a variety of fruitful ways at institutions across the country. So we're going to start the conversation. We'll dig into some of the substance of what each of these interesting projects that these different philanthropic institutions are working on. But before we go there, it's fair to say that each of these institutions is, to an extent, swimming against the tide, which is civic education has not been a profound target of philanthropy over the years. And so if we're going to reverse that, we need to understand why these institutions that our panelists direct and help lead, why they have focused on this. So maybe we could start, Hannah, maybe we'll start with you and work down this way. Why does your institution focus on civic education as you have?
Sure. So we have, at the Daniels Fund, we have four what I call pillars for impact. And one of them is developing contributing citizens. And that can cover everything from our investment in education, which we do a lot of, but it also obviously is right alongside civics. And one of the things that we've tried to do in the last few years is ask, where do we see, I'm going to use these words, a crisis? And in the spaces that we fund in. And is there something that we can do to be a part of a solution in that? And can we set a goal, hold ourselves accountable, and aim for something that we could actually measure when it comes to impact? I might have come from the what gets measured gets done in the education space. And so we set out to have this bold goal of reaching 1 million young people in middle school by 2030 with genuine depth of civic knowledge. And so that is we are on a mission, and that has impacted our investing immensely. And I'll talk later a little bit more about this, specifically in helping launch with the U.S. Chamber Foundation the National Civics Fee.
Yep, excellent, thank you. Louise, why are you focused on this with your colleagues at Carnegie?
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it is part of a fairly broad portfolio. We have three missions: advancing peace, strengthening democracy, and promoting education. So that's a lot to keep us busy. So as I said, we have a fairly broad portfolio, but actually this issue is one of long-standing for us. We were founded by an immigrant, Andrew Carnegie, and he wrote in the early part of the last century that there is no more committed advocate of democracy than somebody who has grown up in a country that doesn't have it. So he believed that our immigrant population were actually likely to be the strongest advocates for democracy, which was one of the many reasons why throughout our 120 years or so, we have worked for the integration of immigrants. There are many good reasons to work for the integration of immigrants, but that was one of them. So back in 1954, we funded the Columbia University Citizen for Education program. Then in the 70s, when the voting age was raised or dropped rather to 18, we again made a big push on education for citizenships, and have broadly done so ever since. I know some of you have been in this world far longer than I have, and I know a number of you were involved in the 2003 report on the civic mission of schools that Carnegie was involved in. So we have, in fact, we do have a long history of interest in this area. Coming to the foundation 2 years ago, having, as you mentioned, been living outside this country, I was astounded by the pace of political polarization here as compared to other countries. Throughout the pandemic, I think political polarization accelerated at an extraordinary pace, far outpacing the countries with which I was familiar, like England or Scotland. So in thinking about what can one do to mitigate this, it struck us as fairly obvious that we need to double down on civics education because, again, as was said this morning very eloquently by General Mattis, but actually by several people, how can you defend what you don't understand? So if we want a more engaged, active population and healthy democracy, we need to understand what makes it tick.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. All right, Catherine, why don't you jump in here? And Louise, we may need to deploy your mic for you.
Thanks, Daniel. So at the Stewart Foundation, our North Star is thriving adolescence. We believe that young people can thrive when they can bring their full selves to school and when they can engage as learners and as change agents. We believe that schools should be places where all young people across all lines of difference, they can thrive, they can feel loved, they can have joyful learning experiences there, and that they are prepared for a purposeful and a successful life. We know that young people have strong civic dispositions and beliefs, and that they are leaders right now, and we see countless examples of that across California. We also know that not all young people are getting the skills and the opportunities to practice and to live out their civic dispositions both in school and out of school. And we have a firm belief that they need these opportunities to practice leadership and to practice using their voice to support their vision for the future. We know that some young people, like many adults, they might be disillusioned right now and are not trustful of some of the public institutions. We also know that the skills and the dispositions that young people need to engage civically are those very same skills that young people need to thrive in our democracy and our economy. That's effective communication, engaging across lines of difference and diverse views, critical thinking and problem-solving skills, the ability to research and the ability to be able to evaluate information presented to them. But the ability to practice those skills are not evenly distributed. So at the Stewart Foundation, we've recently launched the California Thriving Youth Initiative. It's a multi-year collaborative effort to support the learning and the civic leadership, well-being, and agency of California's adolescents. Within that initiative houses the Purpose of Education Fund that I lead. We're striving to reassert the role that public education plays within promoting civic preparation, democratic preparation, and civic leadership in California. Through that fund, we're focused on exploring how education systems can support civic identity, purpose, and agency. We're investing in innovative practices and policies and approaches that integrate civics into education and empower youth as change agents. And what's really powerful about this is that we're doing so in partnership with other philanthropic institutions, like the Hewlett Foundation.
Okay, excellent. You've already taken this in with your description of the Purpose of Education Fund, which is really a great endeavor, to the kind of what your respective institutions are fired up about. So, Louise, is there a particular, as you kind of come to this, come to your role and work with your colleagues at the corporation, has there been one or two things that really has intrigued you as a high potential initiative in this area?
Well, I think I'm supposed to answer civics education.
Yes,
first.
sir.
Yes.
Now, within that rubric, is there a particular thrust?
But if I may pursue a slight tangent, but only a slight one, and I'm actually quite excited about the prospect of national service. Again, we heard about this from General Mattis, but we also heard about it from the Chancellor Sully earlier. Again, and I think this is closely related to civics education. I think if somebody understands democracy, they're much more likely to participate in it, and the extent to which they participate in it, it will strengthen the democracy. And no better way to do that than engaging in serious, whether it's military service or community service or working for an NGO, which would also have the ancillary benefit of giving an opportunity. There's far too few opportunities, I feel, in this country for meaningful interaction across race, region, and class. So participating as part of a cohort in a national service initiative, I think, is more likely to happen if based on a strong civics education. But the two together, I think, have a real potential to shift the dime at a time when it desperately needs to be shifted.
Okay. Hannah, tell us more about the civics beat and how you came to it and how that's unfolding.
So I get pretty excited